Not even on camera, that's great. Good evening, Holliston. Welcome to the May 16th, 2024 meeting of the Holliston School Committee. We have two important presentations tonight. And so with that, what I'd like to do is take a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended and pull out the minutes, which we have we were trying to figure out exactly what happened, discrepancy last week, but I want to approve the warrants. So maybe just a motion to approve the warrants.
Moved by Cynthia.
Second by Dawn.
All in favor? All right, that is 5-0 or 5-0. Next, we will move to our reports from the representatives, student representatives. Apologies.
So this is the last week of AP testing, so tomorrow will be the last day. Tomorrow is also prom, so a lot of seniors and juniors are very excited for that. And then seniors' last week of actual classes is going to be next week with AP finals for those classes are going to be on Thursday and Friday. And then this past Wednesday, seniors had Futures Day where they got to show off their college gear or other plans they have for the next few years.
Yep, and the induction for NHS, the ceremony for that will be this coming Tuesday, and we currently have Art Saves Lives right now, so we have artwork from students from like our school, and yeah, you should go check them out. And then for our TBL track, boys came in 6th and girls came in 2nd in a recent competition. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Individual comment from school committee members.
Yes, today I do have. So this is possibly my last school committee meeting. We could have another one, but I don't know if I could make it. But I just want to take this opportunity to thank the community and the committee for giving me this opportunity to be here, to be a part of this wonderful committee. There's a lot of talk about equity, and I have seen firsthand how much effort the committee and everyone else associated with it put an effort so that everyone can have a voice as much as possible. So I really, really want to thank you for that. And it's an ongoing effort, it's an ongoing process. A lot of time, a lot of dedication, a lot of research is going behind it. So if something doesn't happen right away, please be patient. It's getting done, trust me. We just have millions of meetings to get it done. I also want to thank for one more thing. The commitment that I have seen from the committee members, especially school committee members, is incredible. It's truly inspiring. Considering that this is a volunteer position, there's not truly anything that anyone is getting out of it, to be very honest, other than the fact that we are sometimes here till 11:30 at night, walking out into the dark rain and just praying that we reach home safe, because people have been up since 4:30 in the morning and just want to go to bed so that they can again get up at 5 o'clock next day. So the commitment is incredible. Yes, it's a lot, but it's incredibly rewarding. So I really want to thank that, and especially because the effort is towards a common good. It's not driven by any state or religion or region or language. It is truly driven by the core fundamental of wanting to do good, and that can never be taken away. So thank you so much. This is something I don't know about other countries, but not even in US, maybe everywhere, but from what I have seen here, it's incredible. So thank you so much. I really wanted to thank.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you very much, Wendy. We'll definitely miss you.
Nothing more. Thanks.
Just want to echo the statement on the Art Saves Lives. It's really an excellent show, and I do encourage people to go. We've got lots of really amazing artists here at the district, and it's great to see what they have done. So thank you.
just a shout out. I guess we had the Rams concert yesterday evening, and then Art Saves Lives is going on now. Touch a Truck, the Touch a Truck event over at Placentino is this Saturday. Next Tuesday evening is the NHS induction. Just a really busy next 2 weeks, and then our Montessori showcase over at the elementary school is on Wednesday evening of next week. So, and Minnie, thank you very much for all the many hours you put into this and your dedication, and I've learned so much from you, and you really have, been delightful to work with, so thank you.
I just want to add that the learning has been all mine, to be very honest. Honestly, I have learned so much in these 3 years, and I feel that I've not even learned 1/10 of what you guys have been doing. Some of you have been on the committee for, 9 years, 10 years. I don't even know how you have done it, but this is incredible. I would have continued. It's just that my work timings do not allow me to commit any more time. It needs more time, and the time that it needs is the time that I work. So it directly clashes with my work hours. That is the only reason I'm leaving, trust me. Otherwise, I would have stayed.
Thank you, Minnie.
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
Elections is on Tuesday, so
stole
please
mine.
come out and vote. There are contested races, including school committees, so please come out to vote at the high school. Polls are open, 7 to 8?
7 to 8.
7 to 8 p.m.
7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Yes, and I'm counting, so.
Yes, and I would also like to add that people who are new in the community, if you can vote, please vote. If you cannot vote, come and join the process in some way. There are lots of opportunities at the town hall for you to volunteer, so take that opportunity, be a part of the community, and have your voice heard.
Thanks.
So yes, so Tuesday's election day. Please come out and vote. And I also was able to get here a little early to see some of the Art Saves Lives exhibits. It's a truly wonderful thing that the students put on, and with the help of their teachers. So it's still going on until I believe 8 o'clock tonight. So if you're watching this and you want to run on up here, please do. With that, we will move to public comment, and we have one person who would like to make some public comments. If you could just come up to the, speak into the microphone so those at home could hear you.
All right.
Just state your name and address.
I'm Aryan Gupta. I live at 92 Pilgrim Road, and I am a Holliston High alumni. I currently go to Iowa State University, and I'm a third-year mechanical engineering student. I came to speak on something that's relatively small, but I think is a bit of an important matter. So, a physical education covers a lot of both the knowledge we need to know about our bodies and a lot of introduction to basic sports: baseball, basketball, tennis, badminton, etc. And one thing that I realized now, I didn't know back then, is that there's not really much coverage for students who are left-handed. For reference, I'm also left-handed. And I found that this causes a bit of trouble, as if you're using the wrong hand for any sports of the sort, you have a lot more trouble actually participating. Your positioning is mirrored, your strength is different because dominant hands tend to yield more strength when actually using, and your hand-eye coordination is also just generally better. But it's never really addressed within the education system. You're just shown the position and told to go, and there's no real address of it. Personally, I, because I learned to do baseball, badminton, and tennis all with my right hand, and normally I thought I have pretty good hand-eye coordination, except I was terrible whenever I participated in PE at these sports. And I have a feeling the same would be the case for any other students who are also left-handed and don't realize this. It's a small detail, but it's really important, especially for interests. I personally lost interest in sports a lot because I couldn't really contribute. And I imagine same would be for other students who want to do something but find themselves unable to contribute in a meaningful manner.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I can't believe I forgot, but I want to go back to school committee conference for just a minute, and just to thank the community for showing up at town meeting on Monday. I think it was a month ago. It feels like, but it really was just 3 days ago. So thank you so much for I mean the turnout to support the schools was incredible. I think there were over 440 people that attended.
I think so. Ooh, that's good.
But and by the time they got to one of the bigger articles later, after the school articles, there were only about 250, 260 people still there, and so a huge number of people came out to support the schools, and luckily it wasn't a contested vote, but we really do appreciate that support
And unanimous.
and unanimous support. So thank you very much, and apologies we didn't think of that earlier, but it's very important. So thank you.
The agenda left at home.
And so with that, we have a couple presentations from Jerry L. about his work with SCL and DEI and Safe and Support Schools and the Equity Steering Committee. So the floor is all yours.
All right.
For 40 minutes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Time flies. I feel like I was just here a little bit ago. I will tell you that today my presentation is going to be focused on progress. It's going to be focused on the work that's happening. As I put together the presentation, I really was also thinking about, I didn't want to steal the thunder of our schools because they have still yet to present, right? Our buildings will be presenting on some of the work. And my work really isn't siloed work. It's not like it's central office work. It's work with our schools. So a lot of what I'll be sharing, I'm sure the schools are going to add more depth to that just as well. Today, what we're going to be chatting about is a couple things. I'm going to just share about the anchors we utilize here at work. When I mean anchors, what are the things we refer back to? I'm going to talk a little bit about the systems building, specifically around SEL, and also I'm going to start sharing a little bit about what is it we're doing, where we headed towards when it comes to data dashboards, and looking at data. I'm going to, throughout my conversation, share where we're going. And then when it comes to the equity audit update, we're actually also scheduled to actually present a more formal presentation June 6th. So today is almost like, if you can imagine, the movie trailer, like when you watch a movie and you have like come to the theaters and they give you suspense. That's kind of what I'm going to share today. I'm not going to go in depth with recommendations. I'm going to share what we've done up to this point, because really that's going to be the essence of the June 6th presentation. And we've been doing a meaningful work there. So with that, why don't we get started in the presentation? You've seen a lot of what's on this screen so far. You've seen me do presentations on Safe and Supportive Schools. I brought advisors from the high school. We've had students. You've seen the schoolhouse. We've talked about the different tiers and what we're building across schools. You've also seen the template on the right, which is a description of what a safe and supportive school is. You've also seen that language around belonging as an outcome. And lastly, you've seen kind of the visual of the heart and the mind, which is really what this work is. But when I think about what's the work that I engage in, the work that I engage in is a purposeful and intentional trying to bring these two things together. And what are those things? It's the concept of belonging as an outcome to have in the same room, in the same space with equitable access to resources. How do we bring those two together? The experience of belonging and making sure our students get what they need when they need it. That's what this work it calls us to do. I don't know if we'll ever arrive at a place where, like, done, we've checked off, we're perfect. This work calls for ongoing focus, ongoing intentional work. So I just wanted to frame that, because in many ways when we think about our roles, SEL and equity, it's really trying to bring that concept of belonging as an outcome and access to resources and supports, and how to do that in a meaningful way. So I just wanted to share this. I think that I'm now entering, right, the end of my third year, right? So time flies. And when I think about that, really one of the things that I learned in working with our schools is that there was a lot of amazing, awesome work happening, but they were siloed by school. And in many ways, it looks like the picture on the left, in which there's a lot of meaningful work happening, but when it's not coordinated, they can get in each other's way. You can head out in a different direction. You can oftentimes not be sure where different people are headed, right? And any one of those circles is the effort and the work that we do. And what sometimes that can lend itself to is projectitis, right? Like, oh, not another thing, not another initiative, not another project. And really what we're trying to get to, and really what this work calls for when we think about that schoolhouse, it calls us to use the very same work we've been doing, but align it in a way in which we're headed in the same direction. I call it almost like rowing together. It's how do we row together? Now, that doesn't mean that every circle on that chart on the right are at the same place at the same time. But it does mean that we have a vision of where we're going. And I do believe that as you hear the conversation, or what I'll share today, and as you hear our principals when they present, I think you're going to hear that theme of rowing in the same direction. And that's really what this work calls for, and it's really what a central office administrator does, is try to help across our schools head us in the same direction, right? And what research has told us is when we do that, it just builds efficacy across our district and feels more rewarding when you see across our district where we're going. So that's really the emphasis of the work. But as we say that, let me jump into kind of some of that systems building. So when I arrived, some of our schools had been working on something called Open Circle. And Open Circle was our SCL Tier 1 approach at our elementary schools. Our middle schools were using Second Step, and our high schools were doing embedded something else. When I arrived, Open Circle actually closed. And it was a model in which you had to send people to go get trained through Open Circle every year. So as you can think, for efficacy, right, that means every single year you're sending people out to get trained, and then you're not building a bench of people who are experts in your building to be able to support that work. So in that work, and I shared with you last year, we had built almost a SEL study group that looked at the different pieces, and we landed at Ruler. And if you recall when we first presented, this year was the year one of Ruler. And what do I mean by that? Year one of Ruler was PD for educators. Ruler really believes, and I really believe that research indicates this, is that in order to really think about how is it we want our students to build social emotional learning skills, we also want our teachers to be able to wrestle with what that would look like, to wrestle with the concepts around social emotional learning, to think about how might I embed that into my practice, and to get a chance to just get to know the resources. And that's what this year has done. And I'm going to show you some of that work that our schools have been doing to get to know Ruler this year. This year was about learn it. It was about trying it. It was about plan for it. A newsletter just went out maybe about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where I shared resources, because as we head into next year, we're going to be offering Zooms or in-person meetings for parents so they can get familiar with what Ruler is, because we would hope that as we build this Ruler social emotional learning approach across our district, it could be similar language that they hear at home. Because this language is transferable. It's not just school language, right? Teaching emotional language, teaching students how to problem solve, working with students around how to think about expression emotions. That's crossover into all the work that we do. And to be honest, it's crossover into what we want graduates to walk away from Holliston High School with as they enter kind of the next step in their workforce. So that's what we've done this year. Next year, for Ruler, what's this going to look like? Our teachers are going to start to embed that at the K-8 level in their classrooms. There's going to be direct instruction happening at the very least K-5. At 6, 7, 8, the same, but they have different structures, so they're going to happen in different pockets within what that looks like. And what has been one of the proudest pieces in my role is to see the schools own this. So a lot of what I'm going to share in the next couple of slides are going to be examples of schools owning this work and making it meaningful for them. Part of my leadership hasn't been to say we're all going to do it the same way. Part of my leadership is to say this is where we're headed. How does this make sense for you? And let's make it authentic to your school, but we're headed in the same direction. We're growing in the same way. PBIS, you've heard about PBIS, and I'm going to share some of the stuff that's happened around in that piece. And what PBIS in the essence is, and I know sometimes we can get lost on paws and stickers and celebrations, but really what it is the school coming together and deciding what are the pro-social behaviors we want to see in our building and how do we support them. And then when students are struggling to meet them, how do we support them? And PBIS calls us to have data to look at, to say how are we making decisions about this work. That's really at the core what this is. So next year, I've worked with all of our schools to kind of get us ready to this point. Next year is going to be about alignment. My hope is that when I report out next June, we're not sharing, here's what we're doing in Ruler, here's what we're doing in PBIS, here's what we're doing here. What I'm hoping we're sharing is, just for example, at Placentino, the Penguin Way is one in which we talk about emotions and are open about the emotional impact we have with each other, and in which we support positive behaviors. And not be about we do PBIS and we do about Ruler. This work calls us to integrate this work, and that's where we're headed as a district. So that's going to be the summer focus as we head into the summer and for the next school year. The other piece that I just wanted to highlight, and I shared this visual before, but if you could see that yellow, the yellow highlight, and what it says is that this year we had a new revision to the health and wellness standards, and the health and wellness standards call for direct SEL instruction, right? It didn't call for that level of SEL instruction before. But I was recently in a meeting with DESE, and one of the things they said to me is instead of coming out with almost like a framework of all the SEL standards kids have to learn, as they start to revise the standards for math, for science, for social studies, for all the standards that they have, they're going to be embedding SEL frameworks into them. So down the line, when we get a new, for instance, math standard or a math framework, in it there's going to be SEL standards within that, right? Because the concept is that SEL should not be a separate thing. It should help us in everything we do throughout our building. Group learning, project-based learning, presentations, group work, individual work, that calls for social emotional skills. It calls for the ability to work with others. It calls for ability to conflict resolution. It calls for us to have that skill set. So if we can imagine this, as we headed into Ruler, and we didn't know that this is where the state was headed, but this is aligning us perfectly for where the state is going to expect of districts to do, which is embed social and emotional learning into all of the curriculum pieces that you do. So as we move forward, as we start to get revised frameworks from the state, they're going to be naming the SEL standards within that. And all of the indications tell us that Ruler is going to help us meet all of those. So this is one example that I wanted to share that was so exciting to see the other day. One of the things that Ruler calls for is called a charter. And what a charter is at the school level, is the school comes together and says, at this school, how do we want to feel? So one of the things that the Miller School has been doing during professional development is working with their teachers to understand and get to learn Ruler. But they really went in deep to really identify as a staff, how do we want to feel at the Miller School? And here's where they arrived at. They want to feel respected, supported, connected, and safe. And then they went and articulated how is it that they're going to feel respected as a staff? How is it they're going to feel supported? How is it they're going to feel connected and safe? Right? So they're really putting the Ruler work into action. They're defining how is it they want to feel emotionally as a staff together. And then at the staff meeting, their assistant principal, Brenda Morrow, asked staff and said, has anyone have examples of us living up to this already? And they just came out with this. And there was 2 educators who were able to point out examples in the room of seeing these pieces being lived in the building, right? And to me, as a leader, it was such an enjoyable moment to see a school living what this is meant to be. Because what research tells us is that if staff are part of a school where they feel respected, supported, connected, and safe, retention improves, joy of coming to work improves. This has direct correlation to the work that we want to do when it comes to hiring. So just wanted to share, because this is just happening right within the last couple of weeks at Miller School, and they're doing amazing work there as well. And then as I transition out of ruler, one of the things I wanted to share, and I think this quote speaks to the work. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And when we think about the lasting impact of educators, and we think about the lasting impact of the work we do with our students, it's about how we made them feel. But that's not just for our students, it's for our staff and for our families, right? So ruler is going to be where we go into the future years across all of those stakeholders to build that out. I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate 16 educators. So just yesterday, and you've heard me talk about the trauma-sensitive learning we've been doing with Lesley University. So as part of the work we've done with Lesley University, after you complete 4 courses, you actually get a certificate from Lesley University on trauma and learning. We had 16 educators who just received their certificates yesterday with some 2024 tassels, with some certificates. And this to me was actually what blew me away, right? These educators right here. What blew me away was I thought they're going to be like, thank you so much, we're done, right? We got our certificate. And they said, hey, Gerald, I heard there's a course 5. When are we doing that? And I said, do you guys really want to do course 5? And they're like, absolutely. And course 5 is actually the cross-section between trauma and equity, right? So this, to me, are champions within our building. And I wanted to list their names, and if you wouldn't mind me, I just want to say the names. They may or may not be watching, but I just wanted to give them, I just appreciate all the work they've done. Adrian Beaver, Finch Bowen, Erica Calais, Susan Kane, Linda Sabrowski, Brielle Chadsey, Julie Day, Christina DeJoya, Rochelle DuPont, Carla Gavin, Catherine Jackson, Caroline Johnson, Nicole Marchand, Kendra Sisson, Laura Ryan, and Alyssa Sanford. I know there's no one here, but if we can give them a round of applause, I think it'd be great. So that's just one of the celebrations. So what else is happening, right? I think in many ways when I present as a central office person, we present these high-level presentations, and then we say, is this really happening at the school? So this is one of the pieces that I wanted to share. When we talk about MTSS, this is happening at Rams School. They've actually designed 3 different structures within the building that are leading these different pieces. And one of the pieces I'm actually helping the Rams lead is a school climate team. And that school climate team is focused on issues around PBIS, counseling, ruler, crisis teams, wellness, the work with kickboard, safe and supportive lessons, etc. This to me tells me that there's active work happening at Rams in trying to organize the supports that they have. Equity calls us to do this. It calls us to be organized in our approach that we do, and to be able to think about what is the work that we need to be doing for that work to come true. This comes right out of a professional development that happened at Miller, in which Miller, and the title says it, our tier fidelity inventory, which is like a TFI, it's a fidelity tool that we use with PBIS. In school climate data identifies a need to grow our core curriculum tiered SEL interventions. And they spent the whole PD session looking at their own data and coming up with conclusions and thinking about what this work needs to be. That to me is light years from where we were. There was data work happening, but to build this into your structure of your building where we're reflecting on data and thinking about solutions around what we should be doing, this is meaningful work, right? And this comes directly out of the professional event happening at Miller. I would say maybe about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, at Placentino, they did a care celebration dance, right? Just celebrating the students. This isn't about trinkets. It's not about pause. This is about students enjoying and having joy at school, right? But because they collectively came together and were working behind the care mantra. At Miller, when it comes to PBIS, they did resolutions. So when they turned the year, all the kids almost did like New Year's resolutions, but they did resolutions. So they set goals for how they want to live up to RISE. This was a piece that I found really interesting, and these come directly from the school care cards, right? So this is, for instance, at Placentino, if a student was showing cooperation, you might check off cooperation. But they also have cards in multiple languages, right, for accessibility. That's not a mandate. We didn't tell them they do this because they want all their students to access these supports that they build. This was another meeting at Rams where they were doing professional development where they, again, looking at data, making decisions around the behavior data, around what things do we want to see happen differently in our building. At Placentino and at Miller, they've involved students, and even at Miller, they have a student voice group that actually provides feedback on the data they're collecting around solutions they can come up with. That screams youth empowerment. That screams student voice in this work. When you think about the charter that I showed earlier, that actually comes from this concept of a mood meter, in which in our language we have so many words for the emotions that we feel. But oftentimes when we think about, just even with our students or even as a staff, we tend to use a small select group of emotions. And one of the things that we've said, and this was like a joke, but it's real, when you ask an adult, how's it going? Oftentimes in education, educators will say, everything's fine. Everything's going great. And one of the things we're saying is, no, how's it really going? And it could be, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm excited, I'm anxious about this new curriculum, right? All of those things are true. And we need to be able to speak to that in order for us to be able to come up with solutions together. And then one of the activities they did at Miller to arrive at the charter is they went through those emotion words and were able to select as a staff what were the ones that most were meaningful to them, and this is where they landed. Also here at the high school has done a lot of partnering with Holliston Youth and Family Services, and one of the things that they did, which I thought was such a cool activity, is they did a game show in which students were in the auditorium and they had a game show and kids were into it. They had music, but here's the thing. Kids were into the game show and they were learning about substance abuse. They were learning about the dangers. They were learning about the science. They were learning about all of the health piece connected to substance use, but they were doing it in a way that they were enjoying that time in there. And they were enjoying and listening to music, and they were dancing on stage. And I just thought it was such a great way to kind of partner with our community partners and do things in a different way. Additionally, also another partnership with Holliston Family Services, all their student leaders, they had a training around inclusion and diversity, because our student leaders in many ways lead conversations are in our classrooms, and they brought in a presenter to have our student leaders think about, what does it look like for me to think about inclusion and diversity when I'm leading conversations in the classroom, right? Meaningful work. So just wanted to kind of share these highlights, and I know our schools are going to share more, but this is the real work happening in our buildings, right? Going back to the visual, those circles headed in the same direction. And it's okay for every building to have a circle that might have a different label, or a circle that is further along or not there yet, because it has to be real for that school. Anytime if I were to go and mandate schools, you have to do this by this date, it doesn't feel authentic and real to them. What feels real is when they arrive there, right? Because they owned that work. So that's what we see happening. So you've heard me talk about data. You've heard me at times talk about a data culture. What do I mean by a data culture? A data culture is one in which when we talk about data, it doesn't feel judgment-y. It doesn't feel scary. For many people, it does. Data elicits feelings of evaluation, of judgment. But here's also what equity calls us to do. We need data to tell us if we're headed in the right direction or the wrong direction. We need data to tell us if keep going forward. We need this. So one of the pieces of that is to build a culture around data that builds trust, right? So as we start to head into next year and we think about our dashboard that we've talked about in here that we're building with an organization called Open Architects, part of that work has to be, let's collaboratively work on this data together. Let's talk about this data, not in a way that evaluates the person sitting at the table with me, but in a way that says, how do we solve this thing here, right? And one of the things that I'm going to talk about is attendance. And I know Jeff Beatty, about maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, talked about an attendance committee that we put together with our administrators across the board. Also, our state and across the nation, this has become a big issue. So, and I'm going to just reiterate this data just as well. Since 2018 to today, what we've seen nationally is that students who are chronically absent has doubled, right? So we have 16 million students in the United States who are considered chronically absent. That means missing 10% or more of the school year. And as the district hasn't built out that mechanism to really look at data in that way, we haven't been able to have real meaningful conversations around what do we need to do here. Because here's the other piece around this. Here, our conversations around attendance need to shift. And here's what I mean. There is a state law that tells us about school attendance. But also, when we had COVID also changed the way people feel about the importance of school. Because we went to an online version, which meant, oh, I can learn through my computer? And it shifted for many people the importance of being in the seats in school. And so to me, I see that as like a direct driver to why I believe we've seen this increase. But I just wanted to share this data because I don't think we've grasped it here. And I think when we think of attendance, we think of urban spaces. But this is our data. In 2019, 7.3% of our students were chronically absent. Last year, 16.7% of our students were chronically absent. That's doubled. So Holliston is no different than what we're seeing nationally. But what I believe what we're going to do differently is have different conversations about attendance. And that's where the dashboard is going to come in handy. And I'm going to show you a little bit about the dashboard. So our dashboard is not, it's still being built, right? But this was kind of their first share out with us. And I need a picture of this to share because it was so exciting. So here's what you see on this screen. All the way on the left, I don't know if you can see it, where it says numbers of missed education days. I can literally go in there and type and put 15 days, 20 days, and it's going to tell me, based on the average of our students, their expected MCAS score.
Oh, wow.
So a student who misses 30 or more days, that's their projected MCAS score. And one of the things that we see nationally, across the state, and even in Holliston, is that we see lower achievement scores in math for the higher the days of absenteeism go. So the more days you're absent, the stronger impact in math. We don't see as big of an impact there is one, but we see a bigger gap in math for days absent. So as you can see on the right, same data, but what it's doing is actually showing me the impact on proficiency. And of course, as you can extrapolate, as the days missed increases, you have more and more students at the not meeting proficiency. And then if we look down at the benchmark data, the benchmark data isn't MCAS, it's the actual benchmarks we do within our building. Same way, as the days missed go up, you have more and more students at the not meeting. And I've had conversations with families around attendance, and sometimes they'll say, but they're doing fine. But I think what we're not seeing is there's a cumulative effect that we see, especially coming out in the math space. So as a community, as a district that really wants to see our kids thrive, and for some, there's different motivators, and I know for many, they want our kids to be as successful as possible. Everything from career trajectory to where you want to go, there's direct impacts, even though you may not see it in the moment. The data's telling us there's a direct impact into achievement long term. And those conversations, to be honest, weren't conversations we were having, not just in Holliston, but in the districts that I worked in, we weren't there. We were just having conversations about the law and saying, you must be in school. The law says you're in school, and there's these legal ramifications. But there's a deeper level that research has told us that oftentimes parents aren't aware of how many days their kids have missed or the impact it might be having. So this is just one example of how having data at our hands and creating a cross-section with achievement as how it's going to shift the way we talk, how it's going to shift the way we work with families, and how it's going to shift the way we share with the community about the impact of some of these things, right? This is a perfect example of what we mean about some of this work.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
About that last slide?
Yeah.
How are we able to delineate this is Holliston Public Schools data to something else?
So the
like, is
dashboard,
it AI,
this dashboard is being built as directly coming from our data, from our Power
data.
School.
So if that number was 0 days absent, we should see that number
we would
go
see,
up.
yeah.
But it would be different from a different district
Yes.
based on
Right,
the
so this
benchmarks
dashboard
that you have
will
from
only be
previous-
our data. We can ask it, but this data is not comparing us, so this is going to tell us how are we doing,
Yeah.
and for us to make decisions here.
Because remember when we did the presentation earlier in the year, we had to pull everything from outside
Yes.
sources. But it wasn't specific to individuals. We were able to pull like just
Right.
percentages of the district and overall. We couldn't dig deep into that data because it's coming from multiple sources and it's aggregated. So we'll be able to pull in all that data and then add our school data, and it will really give us a triangle.
Is this like a 10-year, like, look back to figure?
Right now, they're looking back 3 years.
Okay, that's why.
But this literally was like their first show to me
Yeah, it's
of like,
cool.
here's what we're building,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And when I was in the room, I was like, I need a screenshot of this.
Yeah.
Because this is going to shift the way we talk about the work.
In
Right?
all areas, right?
In a lot of areas. And I think the other piece too that this is going to allow us to do, and you can see at the top here, right? Just alone on this dashboard, I can see summary data, I can look at daily attendance across my schools, I can look at groups, right? So I could look across, our different student groups, community groups. I could look at tiers, how many kids are what tier of attendance.
Yeah.
And for most of the things we see here, I'm going to be able to drill down to the student with the same lens. So yes, this is going to give us overall piece, but I'm also going to be able to take similar looks at the student level too. This isn't just about district trends. It's going to let me see how have our students been doing, for instance, in a cross section between behavior and achievement.
Yeah. And
How
can
are
you
they? How
set
are they
alerts
doing?
on it too?
Huh?
Can you set alerts on it too, like so it can kind of?
We're working on all that. Absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah. So a lot more to come, right? But even the way we just talked about attendance, we didn't talk about it from a punitive space. We talked about a way around educating our community to understand the impact of attendance. Even the conversation we just had is completely shifted away from where we were as a state and as a country. So more to come on that. Wanted to kind of give a few updates on some mental health supports that we've been working on in the last year. So Care Solace, as we know, we shifted to Care Solace last year, and since last year, there's been 110 direct counseling supports matched with our Holliston students, right? And they're also giving us data, and as part of their data, they're also sharing with us for what reasons are people being referred. And some of the pieces, and this is going to drive professional development for next year. It's going to drive the way we start to think about the work. Anxiety and depression are the two highest. But one of the things we've seen, and I think this has been the shift in the last 10 years, is anxiety has skyrocketed. Right? And I think there's all kinds of reasons, and we could do another session for that another day. But they're also sharing data about that too. And the other piece too is, if you can see at the bottom, they're also sharing with us demographics around who's using these services. And these services are real for everyone. So part of what the conversation just Beatty and I have been having is that as we look at these demographics, we're going to want to look at to make sure all of our community groups know how to access this. And if not, let's make sure that we next year advocate and do that and reach our community groups and make sure that they understand that this is a service that they could utilize. So, Care Solace is having an impact, and through data, we're coming up with ways on things that we can do better next year as we move on to next year as well. The other piece that I wanted to share with you is, as part of the SEL grant last year, this year I piloted something, well, I didn't pilot, I piloted with a partner called Cartwheel. And Cartwheel they only work with schools. It's a mental health organization. And their role is, it's telehealth only, but what we do is they guarantee, for instance, I might have 30 slots at the Holliston Public School. They guarantee that those students who we refer will automatically be connected with a therapist. And under that one referral, there's psychiatric medication if necessary, family therapy if necessary, and for the younger kids who may not be, like second grade and under, who may not benefit from direct telehealth counseling, the family gets the support. And as we head into next year, a piece they're adding to that is family therapy. Because as we know, as our kids get older, sometimes there can be disjunction between or relationship struggles between home and the family. And also, and I'm really excited about this is going to be another layer that our staff also next year can utilize these services as well. And there's actually no limit. So for next year, a staff member could make a referral through Cartwheel, be guaranteed a direct match, no matter the insurance, and have access to family therapy, individual therapy, in all of those pieces. It's 6 months, So it's short-term based therapy. I mean, technically, when we think about mental health counseling and therapy, oftentimes it should be, right, it should not be like you jump into it and it's forever. It's a short-term 6-month support that we put in place, but also at the end of those 6 months, if any of our students or any of the families need support, they make the referral to connect them with a longer-term resource. And as of right now, we launched this in January, and actually I just got to today, we're at 19 direct referrals who are receiving counseling. So if we think about what we built in Cartwheel, and we think about what we've been doing over the last 2 years with Care Solace, that's close to about 117, close to under 130 families, or 130 people receiving supports. That could be student, that could be family, that could be staff. But 130 people have a ripple, right? So someone getting support has either ripple within the family, ripple within the structure, ripple within their school community. And we know that in any school there's gaps, right? We have counselors in buildings, but we might have 2 counselors for 700 kids, right? So these to me, and sometimes people might think, so is this replacing? This isn't replacing, this is adding to our tool belt. This is adding to the resources we have to connect families with different pieces. That's what this is about.
Is this a grant funded? I'm sorry.
Yes,
That's
grant
one
funded. Yeah.
grant funded. And is the 19 people just from Holliston, or
Yep.
is that within our
Just
community
from
partners? Okay.
Yep.
So I have a question here.
Sure.
So for this Cartwheel, do people have to be a part of the Holliston Public School
Yes.
for that, right?
Yep.
And then who do they approach? Do they go through their counselors?
The school counselor put in the referrals. So this is a program that we built that's directly connected to our school counselors. And oftentimes those referrals have come from counselors meeting with families for for whatever reason, and they'll say, because the other piece too is telehealth is not for everyone, right? Some people really just benefit from in-person counseling. Right? So this isn't for everyone. So in many ways, that's why I said it's part of our tool belt, right? For some, this might be a good connection, and for others, not. Because it's a telehealth approach, one of the two, there's some of the things they don't cover is extreme kind of at risk for suicide or inactive substance abuse, because that requires a different level of support and a different level of connection. But anything within that that is meaningful and beneficial would fall into the ability to do that, and if telehealth works for them. And everybody may have the space in the home to be able to engage in telehealth, right? Or the ability to do that within their life. And so for that, maybe Care Solace, and we connect them with it in person, right? So that's where the matching of the different resources really comes in handy, and that can only be done at the one-on-one level.
Have we looked at other wraparound services that would be in person?
Right now, well, I just had a conversation with one who's trying to build that. There isn't one yet. Holliston Youth and Families is one, but they also have capacity just as well.
Yes.
And the other piece too is Medway and Ashland are also working with Cartwheel.
Okay.
So we've started connecting around making sure that we can kind of learn how to best utilize this service. The other piece I forgot to mention is they have over 8 languages in direct counseling support. So available for our students: English, Spanish, Portuguese, French Creole, and then there's several others. And then also they can engage other services to make sure they match the language services, which is often a struggle, is finding counselors in our local community that speak other languages.
So, sorry, I have another question. So I just want to make it, just clarify. So considering the time of our counselors, we're always very hard pressed, right? So it's not often possible for parents to meet the counselors. Sometimes kids are too young. So how does the connection truly happen? Like if a child is suffering, or say a child's parent is suffering?
Yeah, so, and as we said, right, everything is a learning process. The piloting was first launching to see, do we have a need? And the answer is yes. The next step is going to be, especially as we turn the corner to next year, is how can we outreach this into the community in a more meaningful way? Because I agree, not every family has built a relationship to be able to go engage with a counselor. Although most schools do funnel, usually any need that might arise to a school counselor, if it arises in the classroom or whatever. But we don't want to leave it to just that. So part of the approach for next year is going to be some community education and do it in different languages so that our community understand that there is this resource, but the entry point will still be the school counselors, because we also need to make sure that it's an appropriate referral, right? We want to make sure there's telehealth available and access to those things. But next year, we're going to continue to build this up because we definitely see the need for this.
Got it. Thank you.
So that's kind of some of the stuff that's been happening across our schools, and I know our buildings will kind of share a lot more. I want to transition a little bit to the equity audit. As I said, this is going to be almost like a movie trailer, not so much of a presentation on the equity audit, because that's actually scheduled for, I believe it's the 6th of June. So, what have we been doing? I shared a presentation about 2 months ago in which I had 2 students and a parent with me who talked about the work we've been doing. We just wrapped up our 5th session, which was this Monday, May 6th. We're having our last one Monday, June 3rd. And I have to tell you that in these 3 years, this has actually been some of the most enjoyable facilitation that I've been a part of. To be in a space with diverse voices, with people who range from an educator who's been in education for well over 20 to 30 years to a student, and for them to be able to engage in a conversation about advanced placement and to have a conversation about equity has been amazing. And the energy that I leave with, it has been through the roof. The other day when I left, if I would have sat down, I think the students would have sat down and not left, right? They're really enjoying the space, so much so that part of our recommendations as we head into next year is to build a structure for this. And what I mean is that we feel very strongly that after we present our preliminary recommendations, that this shouldn't just be a report that could end up in a corner somewhere, that this gets embedded into our strategic plan as we make updates for next year, but then also that a group continue to meet and provide feedback to the district. I think if there's anything meaningful that we can continue to build is a feedback loop that provides feedback to the district on how are we doing on the goals that we said we wanted to do. And when you bring that up, everybody's like, yes, we want to keep doing that, right? So some of the recommendations are going to be structural, not structural in the sense of like, change this, but structural in the sense of like, let's make sure we have an ongoing feedback loop that happens. The team wants to continue to meet next year. We want to see this work embedded in our strategic plan. Every year, in the summer, we go into a retreat, we update our goals, and we actually present those usually around September, October. But we're going to want to see our recommendations in the strategic plan, right? And naming them on how they're going to be infused in what we're doing, right? We don't want a separate plan of recommendations. What we want is to see these recommendations built into what we're doing. And then equally, we're going to want to build the same accountability. So the hope is that, for instance, when we have presentations next year for the mid-year and the end of year, that we're also reporting out on the items we're moving around the equity audit, right? And as we head into next year, it's no longer going to be the equity audit, it's going to be our equity goals, right? Our equity benchmarks. They're going to be what we own. So we're going to want to see that gets built into what we report out. So unfortunately, we might have to plan those meetings differently because as school committee members, they might extend meetings, but the reality is that they should be, just as I report on goals when it comes to achievement, we should also be reporting on how I'm moving the equity work within my building and how we're moving the equity work across our district. So that's the kind of movie teaser for the June 6th. And I've just been super excited. Sarah, I don't know if you want to share anything. You've been a part of this work as well.
I echo everything you said. They're really great meetings, and I think everyone's engaged, and there's lots of different voices. And the students are wonderful additions and have great voices, and it's really great to hear them. So I always leave feeling very hopeful, which is just nice. So I'm thankful for being a part of it. And
so that's where we're going. So June 6th, or when I reset that date, if it's not the 6th, but hopefully we're going to have an opportunity, and I plan to bring some of those committee members with me to speak about the work and to speak about the recommendations, because the recommendations that we came up with weren't JRL's recommendations. They're recommendations that lived in the equity audit report, and we decided as a group, what should we raise? Because to be honest, there was over 50 recommendations. There's no way as a district we say, where do we start with that? So like a lot of things, we had to wrestle with the fact that we can't do all of them. Where do we begin? And that's hard as like teachers and parents and students to wrestle with, like, what is the most meaningful thing to start with? And why? And if so, why? Why should we start there? And that's what this work has been about. So it's been a great pleasure. And then with that, I'll kind of open it up and just say thank you and see if there's any questions.
One thing I'll say about as we're going through and prioritizing, it's interesting because it is, I think, starting to really represent some of the values of our district. It's like we're naming them and claiming them, which is,
Yeah.
it's just, it's great.
Do we have any preliminary report of the youth risk behavior survey data, and where does that
Metro
factor
West
into any of
Health
the?
Survey?
Yeah, sorry, the Metro Health.
Yeah,
Survey, sorry.
yeah. So we just got, I'd say, in the last month or so, the first preliminary report. We're going to build some sessions as a school to look at them. But one of the things I would hope, right, and everything we say, it's like that's another presentation to the school committee. But I would love to share that data in a public way.
Yeah.
Because these are our kids,
Yeah.
right? And seeing that data around what are some of the risks that our students are struggling with not only impacts the programs we should be building at the school level, but also as a parent, I'd want to know some of those things because they might also impact the way I engage with my children or engage, my grandson or right, whoever you're connected to. It will definitely impact those conversations. So as we head into next year, if you remember in year one, I did a community meeting in which we invited stakeholders, and that was the first time for, I think, almost 15 years that people had a chance to look at that data. We're probably going to do some of that again, because I want our town people to look at that. I want our town hall to see that data. I want our health department to see that data, because this work should not just be schoolwork. This is how our kids are doing in our community. And so I want everybody to engage in that work as we head into the future.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do like your presentation.
Huh?
So we do like them. So
No, I know you like them, but you know what's hard about this work is that every one of these ripples could be a thing within itself.
I know.
Right? The data piece, or the Metro West Health Survey data, or a school climate presentation on how our schools are doing. So one of the things that for next year I'd love to talk about is, are there other ways that we could do that and share that?
Yeah.
Because, right, this could tie up a whole meeting.
yeah, perhaps there are ways
That's
to
okay.
distribute information and then find ways to
Yeah.
if there are questions about it, having sort of presentation based on sort of what we see.
I'm open
here.
to all of it, right? I'm open to all suggestions, but definitely I want to increase the way that we engage
Yeah.
all those
I
pieces.
think I would like to hear more about how that's progressing
Yeah.
over the next year, because I feel like what we're hearing from you isn't quite enough, at least for me.
Okay.
So that's,
Yeah, and I think I would like to add that this is one of the biggest pieces that, I think we have had in Holliston since you have come in, because this was something I think we were truly missing before you came in. And I think this also goes to Susan, you as well, for bringing Gerald on board. And incredibly, it's just not, when the students are happy, the ripple effect is really long term. So I'm just so glad that all of this is all coming together. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jared.
Oh, do I need to get out?
I can, yeah.
You can kick me out?
Think I can
Should be able to.
move. You're still logged in, right? Okay, there we go.
Oh, it's gone.
That's cool.
So up next we have central office updates. Dr. Guska?
We've had a lot of updates in the last few weeks, so the only thing I know you all added the Art Saves Lives, but I am wearing the lovely shirt that Flora Cahill, our student artist, has created. It's beautiful. She had
it's a
her,
pomegranate with a peace sign on it or something, I guess? What's the flower? Yes.
is it an orchid?
The orchid? Lily?
Lily, yes, Lily. There's a lot, if you see the display from Flora, there's a whole, a lot of artwork that showed the progression of the art that she was creating.
okay.
And then I do also want to thank Doug Lack for this is an immense job for him to put all of this together. And one thing that I thought was really nice this year, if you went to the Studio 365, is it called? The studio room in the, down towards the cafeteria, our staff put together tons of art this year to present, and it was, they've done it before, but I felt like today, when I went, the quality of that art for people, and you look at the names, I'm like, oh, I would never have known that person has this, because, they might teach some other content, and just to see that come out, I think that's been something that's really been highlighted this year in inviting staff to participate in this. So it's been great. So thank you to Doug and Flora and all of our other staff that participated.
Great. Let's see, Dr. Bernard.
I just wanted to thank the community for coming out in force and supporting the schools, especially with the capital expenses. We're going to be able to do a lot of important work, so thank you very much.
Okay. And Mr. Uday is
At Masbo.
at Mazzo. This was an addition to the calendar, so.
Yes.
So moving on to personnel, Minnie, I think you said that you guys need a little more time to working on the evaluation.
Yes, we're still working on the draft. Sorry about that. Right, yeah, we are getting there.
Okay, so we'll move that to the next meeting. Reports from the subcommittee, so communications.
Amanda's not here, and we're
We have to figure out the committees.
yeah.
Policy?
I think I was trying to schedule a meeting for the 22nd, but I think it is already filled with something else. So you and I said okay, but I think Dr. Kuska has something else on the 22nd. Is that right? So I have to reschedule.
I have something else to do.
Okay, so I'll get back to you about policy.
Okay.
Sorry. We've had a million other meetings that we're trying to pack everything in, so.
At least you still have a quorum.
Yes, that's,
At least you still have a quorum on the 22nd to be at the meeting.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough.
Budget?
No additional meetings since.
Yay. Yay, check.
Just you wait. And then superintendent evaluation,
Yeah,
you guys are still working. Okay. I've just added back on here because I don't think we talked about it for a while. I know Amanda's been our sort of representative there. Sarah, were you also a representative to the coalition? So is there any update?
Yes, so we have.
Sorry, just for the coalition, I guess, taken by us.
So we have the next coalition meeting is on May 22nd, and we have, I met with Carlos Hoyt and Travis Ahern, our town administrator, Lieutenant Barrett, and Jackie Weiner, and Kathleen Buckley, and Jerry L. were with us for a meeting the other day for planning for that meeting next week. And Carlos is going to come help us put together some kind of a roadmap for some of that work, because we're really trying to plan get the whole year, next year planned out. So we'll have our meeting with him and the team next week to move some of this work forward and really dig into what the progress is going to look like next year and get that schedule out to people. And then over the summer, our smaller team is going to really put together all the plans for next year to see what we can do to invite other voices into the room, because that's where we haven't gotten to that point yet, because we have to figure out where we're going and what we can produce and what we can sustain. And that's our hope with this next meeting, is that we can kind of plan that roadmap of what people want to do and then start to do all that work over the summer. So I'm excited to kind of move that work to the next step and the next level as well.
Okay, any questions? Okay, so I guess I assume we don't have a newsletter, so the last thing on our agenda for this evening before we go into executive session is just finalizing a discussion on the 2024-25 calendar. Last week we voted to add Eid as a holiday to the calendar. But then there was a sort of, I thought it seems like there was maybe some miscommunication whether we were officially moving,
We vote for it again.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying we were officially moving the last date to the 20th, or I think you had looked into potentially finding some alternatives if there were any.
Yes, we did. Joni and I looked into it. We really couldn't come up with any other solution. The only solution would be to back up the first day for staff to the week before, which would be and you hate to do that on a Friday because it's a long long, full week that first week, which
Yeah.
is always hard. So it would be the 22nd, would be a Thursday, and I would, staff aren't ready to do PD then, so they've asked us not to do it right before school when they're anxious to get, going with their students. So we have moved the first PD to September 13th, and then we have ESY, so just, it would really cut our time for staff short, and so that's really the only alternative we have at this point.
Don't plan any final exams on that last day of school because it's the day after holiday and
Well,
summer.
do they do them on the very
No,
last day? It's
probably
only a
not.
half day.
I would assume not.
No.
Yeah, just don't put any finals there. Yeah,
It
that's
doesn't,
true.
it wouldn't make a lot
I
of
doubt they would.
Especially
I'm just
people
saying.
who go to China, India, and Korea, and all of those countries, they will thank you a lot.
So next year, the way the holidays line up, because I was going over this with Lisa DeLuzio, Yom Kippur, I believe, is the only holiday that falls on the weekend. So there are, I'm going by the 12-month calendar, but there are 20 holidays throughout the year that our 12-month staff would be off. And then I don't know if it ever gets to 21, because I don't know how, from year to year it's different. But we had, the most we've had is 20. Now the max will be 21 with the current schedule we have.
So are you good? I don't think,
What does that actually mean, if you don't mind me asking?
March 31st will be a day off for all members, yeah. Holiday.
Thank you very much, I really appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you. You came with some backup.
sorry if we weren't clear about that. It was,
Fine, I just wanted to come.
yep, no.
But doing that, we really do appreciate it, you see, because I was born and raised in England. My name's Zarina Bashir.
You want to go up to the mic?
Right, Zarina Bashir, 1855 Washington Street, Holliston, Mass. Been here for 26 years. Before that, I was in England, and growing up, it was very tough because besides Christmas, we weren't allowed to have a holiday. So I really cannot thank you enough for doing this for us. It's really appreciated. So that's about it.
Great.
Hats off to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to officially, without any kind of doubt, move the last day of the...
Take a picture of it or something? We all know.
To move
I'll hold it up.
the last day the planned last day of the school year to the 20th, with the official last day of what is the
That would be the 27th.
of the 27th.
If we had 5.
If we had
If we
5.
have any inclement
Let's just
weather.
forget about that. It's not gonna happen.
But I believe we actually have to do that though anyway.
You would have to revote that next year.
Yeah.
We can revote. We have to
Okay.
vote the
If we had
last day.
snow days.
So-
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Moved by Cynthia.
Second.
all's in favor? Okay, carries unanimous.
Thank you.
With that, we've come to the end of our public portion. Our next meeting day will be actually on Monday. We're going to just sneak one more in for you guys who are not doing that. With one of some of the main events is just trying to settle up on minutes.
So that would be the 20th, right?
That would be the
Not the
20th.
23rd.
correct. You will not have to come on the 23rd.
because you're.
Yeah,
You can't.
that's
no,
exactly why I'm asking.
No, you
That is
absolutely
exactly why I'm
can.
asking.
You can show up.
You can sit right over.
Yeah, I'll probably,
There.
with a placard?
Sure.
With a placard?
Those are the same. Those are actually the same seats. You have to sit anyway. But
Executive session.
and then we're going to get into executive session. But we do have minutes that we need to approve next week.
Yes.
So anyway, so now I'd entertain a motion to adjourn from open session into executive session, from which we will not return, for the purposes of conducting strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or position of the public body and the chair so declares, and that's related to collective bargaining with the HFT. Do I have?
Moved by Cynthia.
Second by Dawn.
Okay, that requires a roll call vote. You're not Amanda, you are Minnie.
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Dan? Yes. Thank you very much. We stand adjourned.